talk about the eye, and let's do some challenging thinking here. This is a young lady. She's only 39. And if you believe it, she's already had a brow lift and eyelid surgery on your left. Does that look rested to you? Or does she still look tired? And let's look at the upper eyelid crease. Everyone in the Asian community is obsessed with not getting a huge crease. And I agree with them. But you know what? I'm equally obsessed when I deal with a Caucasian, because look at her in her late 20s. Did she have a high crease? No. So a brow lift and eyelid surgery, traditionally speaking, has altered her identity. Not terribly, it's not a bad procedure, but it didn't deliver anything except a change in identity. What I did with her is I put the brow back down. So here's a challenge. Look at the brow on your left, and if you look at it, it looks too heavy, right? Would you agree? It looks too heavy. Therefore, I made it heavier in order to make it look lighter. Have I blown your mind? Because this is a perception thing. Most people say, oh, it's too heavy here. Shouldn't you lift it? But you feel it. And that's the trick. I made that brow 3 times heavier in order to make it look lighter. So that's the challenge, is see what I see. Now, if I just filled the brow, would that look good? No. There's no facial balance. If you look at her cheek, it has to be augmented and balanced with the brow. So you have to have a good eye when you do this. This is not a mechanical exercise. This is understanding youth and beauty and shape. Here's a lady, 47. It was an interesting story. She was doing a live testimonial in front of an audience like you. And she said she just recently was photographed, and another photographer friend said, you know, I want a model just like her who's 25. Well, she's 47. And if you see what I did, let's take a look at this analysis. It looks like a low-hanging brow, right? I didn't lift it. I filled it. Now, it's hanging over the eyelid, so in this case, I took a tiny bit of skin, but I filled it. I filled it, and you see that eye bag? I don't. There's no eye bag. It's hollowness. I filled it. There was no eye bag removal. I filled it with fat. Let me give you an analogy that will help you understand this. I heard this recently, and I thought it was a brilliant way to think about this. If we look at the lower eyelid like a seashore, okay, it's high tide in youth. As we get older, the tide settles away and we see the rocks. And the rocks are your lower eyelid bags. So instead of taking the rocks away, we need to fill it back up to high tide. So what you see as an eye bag, I see as a hollow rim, okay? And if you look at her, the skin is improved for 2 reasons. I improved it with plasma resurfacing, which is another topic I'm not going to get into. But also there's more light. Because think about this, when you and I see each other, when you look at, and you get you look at the plastic surgery photographs, they're done with flash. But if you and I see each other, it's just overhead lights. And here's the thing. That's how we look at each other and we perceive that person being tired, because overhead lights is what causes the shadow. But look how much light it hits that face. And this is very, very controlled lighting. There's no ambient lights, and I won't get into all the details unless you want me to, but it's extremely controlled in my photography standards. And I write about it all the time. Look at the eyes on the right. Look sagging, right? What I see is an eye that's proportionally too big for the frame. So I reframed it. And when I reframed it, it looks young again. No cutting. In fact, you listen to her testimony on my website. She went to 10 plastic surgeons. They all, 50% said to cut, 50% said, oh my God, let's not do that. I'm glad the 50% actually won out until she saw me. Here is the same thing. Eye bag, bulging eyes, right? No. It just needs volume. And that's all I did to create balance. Eye bag? No. Brow descent? No. And if you see this eye is sort of in between the other two I've shown you. It's not too low, not too high, it's in between. But I want to show you something different. Do you see this line right here? That's what I see, and that's what I fill. It's exposure of bone. When you expose bone, you have age. So it's a rethinking from the ground up. There was no cut here. In fact, here's a 41-year-old lady, very young lady, with, on the left, a brow lift and upper eyelid done. Does she look young after that? It's accelerated her aging. So here's the challenge. I brought her brows lower. Everyone else brought them up. I'm doing the exact opposite of everything you know. And by the way, that's 15 months out. Does fat last? I'm going to show you it improves over time, and I'll walk you through that. Let's talk about inverting the triangle. You heard that before. Is every time I do fat the same? No. Absolutely different. Here's a 46-year-old Chinese woman. Took a little bit of skin from the upper eyelids. But does she look slimmer after I added fat? Everyone says, I don't want to have a pumpkin face. I don't look fat. How about I slim your face with fat? Did I blow your mind? Because the whole idea is understanding how to sculpt the face beautifully. She looks, there's no liposuction, no facelift, no cutting, except a little bit of the eyelid skin. But I filled it, and now she's slimmer. because I sculpt the face slimmer. Let's look at the opposite example. Here's a 49-year-old, very beautiful lady who's had some brow work, etc., but she looks gaunt and tired. So I widened her face in order to make it look more beautiful. So you have to have an eye. This is not just a mechanical exercise. This is artistry. Here's a lady, 56, who's already had a brow and eyelid surgery on the left. Is that rested to you? No bag removal, no brow lift, no facelift, adding fat. 55-year-old, you get the point. Adding volume, converting the triangle. And actually she looks less heavy in the jawline, right? With no facelift, no cutting. I hinted on this before, but it's a very, very important thing, because almost no plastic surgeon ever asks to look at your old photos. And simply in one word, they can't deliver that. Okay? That's more than one word. But anyways, you get my point. Here's a lady who's had a brow lift on the left. Does it look rested? Besides not looking rested, she had all this hair loss from a large incision. Now it's rested. And look at her photo 15 years prior. That's getting her closer to her own identity instead of taking it away. Now when you look, here's a perception on the left. You see a line, right? You see acne scarring. What I see is volume depletion. Now I couldn't even touch her with an incision because she's on a product called Accutane, but I was able to deliver a result with no cutting, just volume. And if you look at her in the top right from 49, she looks much closer to herself in her 20s, which is a low full brow. That's a frontal view. And here's a lady here, oh, sorry. Here's a lady 59, and if you see, that eyelid skin is just hanging over the eye, so I took a tiny bit of skin out, volumized her lower eyelid, did a little chemical peel, little lip enhancement. If you see, who got her closer, the previous surgeon's work or mine, from 59 to 35? Restoring identity. You saw this earlier. The idea is taking someone that looks like that and making them look like this, and giving them their identity back. This is why implants fail, because implants exacerbate the hollow under the eyes and the area called the buccal area, okay? Does fat go away? I thought fat goes away after a few weeks, a few months. I was talking to some people earlier. How about it gets better over time? I'm going to show you this. Actually, my fat results look the best about a year out to 2 years out. This is a 51-year-old. Facelift, fat graft, 6 weeks out, you can still see the swelling. 6 months out, okay, with no sleep. Less than 1 hour, I got a great photo. She said, don't take my photo today, doctor. I said, perfect time, because I'm going to use this. And if you look with no sleep, which looks more rested? 8 hours or 0? 14 months out, okay? Look at her at 35. Now, those cheeks at 35 were too big. So you have to understand how to sculpt it right. So you don't necessarily have to match an old photo, and that's part of the dialogue.